on his way home in his brand new car that night. He was on the highway, and this white light came out of the sky directly at his car. And just before he veered off the road and into a ditch, he saw Annabelle in the halo of the light.
I want to know the real story, not the movie story. So I know the movie version is not quite real.
Nothing is real in the movie versions of Annabelle. When I was living with my grandmother the last year and a half of her life, and she was very sick. I spent the last day of her life with her. She had Alzheimer's. Her bedroom was filled with spirits. They were waiting for her.
Could you tell us, please, what is the real story of Annabelle?
Absolutely.
Ed y Lorraine Warren fueron quizás los investigadores paranormales más famosos de la historia. Hace 3 años, en octubre de 2022, vino Chris McKinnell, el único nieto de los Warren. Chris dirige la Warren Legacy Foundation, una organización sin fines de lucro que busca preservar el legado de sus abuelos y seguir ayudando a personas tal y como Ed y Lorraine ayudaron por más de 40 años. En esta entrevista hemos mejorado el audio y hemos agregado fotos reales de los Warren para que puedan acompañar a las preguntas. Aquí podrás conocer la verdadera historia de Annabelle, cómo los Warren manejaban sus casos, las diferencias con las películas del Conjuro, entre otros datos que quizás no conocías. Si quieres saber más de los Warren, te invitamos a ver El Conjuro 4 Últimos Ritos, que ya está disponible en todos los cines a nivel nacional. Vamos con la entrevista.
So, chicos, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Hoy estamos en una ocasión especial. Tenemos un video bastante distinto a lo que estamos acostumbrados. Hoy estamos con Chris McKinnell. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Muy bien, gracias.
Very happy to have you. So, you're here in Peru for quite some dates. So, could you please introduce for the people that don't know you, and who is Chris McKinnell, and what is the Warren Legacy Foundation?
Sí. Y perdóname, pero mi español no es suficiente para enseñar a la gente contra lo paranormal. Es necesario uso mi inglés.
That's totally okay.
Okay. My name is Chris McKinnell, and I am the director of the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. We carry on the work of my grandparents, Ed and Lorraine Warren, which everybody knows from El Conjuro y Annabelle. I've been doing this work now for 42 years. My grandparents started working in the 1940s, so we've been doing this for almost 80 years.
Wow. Right, so you are the only grandson of the Warrens.
Yes.
So it is inevitable not to talk about them. So we know Ed and Lorraine as the investigators, but we never knew them as a person. So how were they like as a person? What is the most memorable moment that you recall for them?
Oh, the holidays. Always the holidays.
Okay.
My grandmother, I think she started buying Christmas gifts 2 years before each Christmas. And when she would come to the house, she would bring 25 gifts for each of us. It was like just piles and piles. She was the true Santa Claus. My grandfather, he was a joker. He liked to scare people. In the basement of their house, he had set up something he called the Halloween room.
Oh, okay.
And I remember being 4 years old and going down this incredibly narrow staircase into this dark, ugly little basement. And he'd have bats, plastic bats dropping on my head and anything to terrify me. As if the museum wasn't bad enough, you know.
I know.
I remember I was 2 years old. All right, probably 3 years old. And one night I went out there to see my grandfather, and my sister, who was a year younger than me, 2 years old, she locked me in the museum. And I look around and I see all of this stuff, and I'm like screaming my head off. And my grandfather, luckily, he was in the office in the back room, and he came running immediately and saved me. But yeah, that I remember as well. My grandfather, he could be impatient as well. Some of my fond memories actually are of my grandmother spending 2 hours saying goodnight to us after we'd had Sunday dinner together, and my grandfather out on the street saying, "Come on, Lorraine! You know, let's get going." He was ready to go, and she could take forever. And she had this ability to completely ignore my grandfather. It's like, okay, honey. And then just keep going.
It was very polite.
Oh yeah, always sweet, always sweet.
Okay, so when we picture them as investigators, we know them as fearless and very brave. So where do you think they took all this strength to face these kind of supernatural situations?
In my grandmother's case, it was faith. It was always faith. But my grandfather, that was different. He grew up in a haunted house. And when he was a young boy, he would see the landlady who used to live there in the hallway. And the family did not believe in the paranormal. And then one day he saw this other woman sitting on his bed, and he was actually conversing with her. And he told his father about it, and his father knew who that was. It was his sister who had died.
Oh.
And so that's when they started to believe. But that started getting my grandfather fascinated by the paranormal. When he was 16, it was World War II, and he tried to join the Marines.
Okay.
And as soon as my great-grandfather found out, he ran down and pulled him right out.
Oh.
But when he was 17, he did join the Navy, and he went to war. And I think that shaped his fearlessness, really. I mean, I remember on our very first case, it was a poltergeist case. It was right out of Hollywood. I mean, the walls were pounding. There was clawing going on inside the walls. You'd hear growling. 2 hulking black shapes came down the stairs and confronted us in the dark, and you could still see them in the dark. And there was and the woman in the house screamed. Their face was on fire.
All right.
And 3 claw marks appeared, and blood dripped down on her chest. And then a pot that had Holy Church incense in it flew out of the kitchen around the corner and straight at my head, and just missed me. It hit the window behind me. The amazing thing is, the pot was crushed.
What?
And the window did not break. That's impossible.
Yeah, that's physically impossible.
Yeah. So the woman wanted to get out of the house. She's screaming, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to help you. I'm 16 years old. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
And what's your first case?
Yes. I've been afraid of the dark my whole life up until that point.
Okay.
And I ran to the front door, and the door would not open. And then the lights are going on and off, and the chair I'd just been sitting in starts tumbling across the room toward me. And then the door opened, she and I got out, and my grandfather sat there in the dark with all of this going on, calm as could be. He truly was absolutely fearless.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievably.
All right. And did you remember any kind of situation in which they might have said, I can handle this, we can help you with this case, we quit this case? Do you remember any kind of?
Not really. But one thing I've learned is 50% of their cases they did not solve. And often that was because the families were not willing to make the changes necessary to solve the case. There's always an underlying reason why one person is vulnerable and another person's not. And if we don't deal with that underlying problem, then the paranormal isn't going to go away. If you're using drugs and you're opening your third eye up using drugs, well, if you keep doing that, you're going to keep attracting things to you.
So stop doing that.
Yeah, so we have to work on that as well. They never wanted to give up, but sometimes they didn't succeed.
So I know that many people said that living with the Warrens is like living with the objects of the Warren Museum as well. So do you remember any anecdote with the object itself, or maybe with the museum itself?
Well, yeah, but first I want to make something clear to people, because everybody wants to go see this thing.
Yeah.
It's not open to the public.
It's not open, I know.
And I think the worst part of the legacy of my grandparents is that they ever called it a museum, because everybody wants to collect paranormal items. And that's incredibly dangerous. We're talking about energies here that have influenced people in negative ways, have killed people, or just caused horrific hauntings. And I don't recommend going out and collecting these items. There are items in there from cases of mine. Like I said, I've done this 42 years.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things in there that are dangerous. It's more of a prison than it is a museum. It's a place to protect the public from those energies. People ask me, well, why don't you just burn them? Well, because right now, those energies are anchored to physical items. If you destroy the item, you don't destroy energy. You just release it.
You release it, okay.
So we don't do that. I do tell people though, if you have a haunted object, take it far away from any house. Dig a hole about that deep, a third of a meter deep, a foot in my measurements, and consecrate the ground with holy water or with blessed salt. Bury the item and never come back to it. The negative energy will leach out into the earth. The good earth will absorb it, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
I think that people go shopping online these haunted objects.
99.999% of that crap is not true. Think about it. How easy is it to just buy a chair and say, oh, this chair is haunted, it's cursed, and if you sit in it, it will kill you. Well, yeah, I'd like to buy that for $10,000, please. It's like, why would you want to buy a haunted object anyway? But most of it's fake. It's garbage.
Yeah. So following with the object topic, we had a massive news on 2020 about Annabelle has going out the Warren Museum. I know this was a misunderstanding.
It caused me so much frustration for about 6 months. I was in Brazil at the time, and everybody in South America went insane.
Yeah.
Just, oh my God, is it coming to my town? It's like, it's still in the museum.
Yeah.
There's nothing to worry about.
But I know that the doll has often going out to conference investigations and exhibitions. I do remember watching this TV show,
Ghost Adventures,
in which they take out the doll into a briefcase and then take out. How secure is that?
It isn't. It's an incredibly dumb thing to do, and I don't agree with it at all. But Annabelle doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my mother and her husband, and they have a different viewpoint on it. For them, this is how they're surviving in their retirement, and I don't agree with it. I don't think my grandfather would agree with it. I certainly know that he never took it out. It stayed in that box. Once they figured out how to contain the energies, that was where it stayed. Now I see them putting on oven mitts to hold Annabelle. That's not protecting you from the energy. Your aura is still interacting with the doll. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as for that program, Ghost Adventures, you watched, if anybody did 1/10 of the crap that they show on that television show, you'd get yourself killed.
Yeah.
I don't like paranormal programs. I don't watch them. I couldn't tell you, other than the guy that's the star of Ghost Adventures, I couldn't tell you the name of another celebrity that deals with the paranormal. I just don't follow that stuff. It's not interesting.
They treat that as entertainment.
Right.
Yeah,
The Warren Legacy Foundation is dedicated to helping people anonymously and for free. And we've got people all over the world. That's the reason I'm in Peru. I'm here to find good teams and also to help people who need the help. Tomorrow I'm going to be working on a case here in Lima. As far as I can tell, it seems to just be a normal ghost. It shouldn't be anything too dangerous, but the family is terrified. So we're going to go in and figure out what it is and see what we can do to help them. But my job, as far as I'm concerned, is to minimize fear first.
Yeah.
Your fear can feed something perfectly harmless and turn it into something harmful because you're manifesting your fears. The energy's there. What you do with that energy is really up to you. Remember I talked about these underlying issues that make a person vulnerable. When it's a mental health issue or something, and you've got depression or trauma or PTSD, then your manifestations are probably going to be negative. And
Yes.
so that's a real issue. We deal with a lot of psychics. We've actually got 2 psychic support groups online with the foundation, one in English and one in Spanish. We've got well over 800 people around the world. And we started this to deal with the overwhelming energies that hit these people constantly. The anxiety attacks, the panic attacks, because they go out in public and then they're overwhelmed. And we teach them how to protect themselves. We teach them how to turn that energy into something good, and how to even bury it and put it into the earth. But often, the haunting that you're dealing with is harmless. It's only your fear that makes it harmful. You hear the footsteps in the hallway.
Yeah.
And it's not the devil walking in the hallway. It's probably your grandmother come to check on you and see if you're okay, honey. When I was living with my grandmother, the last year and a half of her life, and she was very sick. As a matter of fact, it was a blessing when she left. I was happy for her. I didn't cry or anything. I spent the last day of her life with her. She had Alzheimer's, but she still loved her music, and we were singing together, and her bedroom was filled with spirits. They were waiting for her, and I could feel them, but my grandmother by that point couldn't. And I knew it was coming. And when she passed, I had my tablet, which was at 35%, and psychics will do this all the time. As soon as she passed, the power just sucked right out of the tablet and it died completely. And I said, Graham, are you still here? And I got this high-pitched sound. I was like, okay, Graham, okay, you're here. And I knew my grandfather was there as well.
Okay.
He was there waiting for her, which is typical. That's the way it should be. You've got your loved ones waiting for you. People are so afraid of death, but the truth is, when you die, it's a coming home party. For us it's bon voyage, but for them it's a welcome home.
A reunion party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful experience for them. When we die, it's not us. It's just our bodies. Our body is just the car that we drive. When it breaks down, we get out. There's nothing really to be afraid of.
People doesn't want to understand the meaning of death.
It's a terrifying thing when you don't understand it.
Yeah.
My family has a far different relationship with death. For instance, when I was 16 years old, I was coming home from my first grown-up party in my very, very bad car. Bald tires, it was a rainy, dark night, I was on country roads, and I looked in the rearview mirror and there was an old man in the back seat.
Oh.
And I went, terrified. I turn on the light, turn around, nobody's there.
Okay.
So I kept the light on and I immediately got home as fast as I could. But the next day, out of the corner of my eye, I was at work, I was working in a bakery, and I kept seeing this old man looking at me. I'm like, why do I keep seeing an old man? I'd never had anything like that happen to me before. And about a week later, I mentioned it to my mother. So she got out the family photo album, and she opens it up and she says, "Is this the man you saw?" I was like, "Yes, who is he?" It was my great-grandfather, Lorraine's father. My mother had prayed to him that night to watch over me. He had loved me until he died when I was 4 years old. I have no memory of him other than after he died. But even my grandmother and grandfather, after they died, my grandfather was turning on the lights in the museum, and he was making footsteps and letting us know he was around. After my grandmother died, I could hear them walking around in the living room. I could hear them come up the stairs to my part of the house and come in, and they were checking on me.
Yeah.
I was actually in a place called Sanatorio Duran.
Costa Rica.
It's in Costa Rica, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
A very famous haunted location.
Yeah.
Normally I don't investigate these kind of places, but I was there with a team from Costa Rica that's part of my foundation,
Okay.
and I agreed to go with them. I was glad I did, because I escaped everybody who was, filming me and taking photos of me, which I think is silly. And I went into this little room, and a little child, a ghost, came up to me. And I'm talking to this child in Spanish, trying to explain, there's nothing to be afraid of. Just go to the light. Your family's waiting for you. But the child was too afraid. And then I noticed my grandfather standing right here like this. Chris, what are you doing? And my grandmother comes from over here, and she gets down on her knee, and she takes the child by the hand, and they walked into the light together. It was the greatest experience, honestly.
So they are with you?
Not always.
Not always.
Not always. I had an interview here in Peru, my very first interview, with Dr. Anthony Choi.
Yeah.
And he asked me that. He said, are your grandparents with you right now? And I went, no. And as soon as I said that, I got this big hug. And I could feel this warm energy surround me. I was like, oh, no, my grandmother's here. Yeah, no, they're here. And there was another psychic, and she was crying almost because she could feel them right there with me.
Oh.
Yeah, so yeah, they do show up quite a bit. They've helped me on a number of cases.
So I would like to take the topic back to the Annabelle.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know the real story, not the movie story. So I know the movie version is not quite real.
Nothing is real in the movie versions of Annabelle.
So could you tell us, please, what is the real story of Annabelle?
Absolutely. Back in 1967 or 68, there were two nursing students in Hartford, Connecticut, and they were working at the Hartford Hospital. And one of their mothers gave them this stuffed Raggedy Ann doll. The doll doesn't look anything like that horrific thing from the movies. Honestly, that thing in the movies, in the first movie, a guy buys that doll for his pregnant wife. I mean, that is the dumbest idea ever. But anyway, and the nursing students immediately fell in love with this doll. You know, it was a gift, and it was cute, and so they would sit at the kitchen table with them. They would go to bed with it. They would talk to it.
It looked cute. It was a regular doll.
It's about that tall.
Yeah.
And it looks, not to me anymore, but to an ordinary person, it might look very adorable.
Yeah.
But then they were sitting at breakfast one morning, and all of a sudden the arms came up on the table. And this was 1968. So it was a different time. It was the age of Aquarius, and everybody was like peace and love. And they thought, ooh, there must be a spirit in the doll. Let's have a seance. Spirit communication is one of the most dangerous things you can do. If you are a negative person and you try to communicate with a spirit, whether it's through a spirit box, Ouija board, pendulums, whatever it is, it's your intention to communicate. It's your intention to open the door to the spirit world that can get you in trouble. They brought in a medium, and the medium was fed this story. And she came up with the idea that this was a little girl named Annabelle who had been killed in front of the house and was just looking for a family to love her. You'll see elements of that fake story in that Annabelle Origins movie. Yeah, but that's all based on lies that were told to the medium. I tell people never trust a psychic, ever, without evidence. I'm a psychic. My grandmother was a mutant. I mean, she was like an X-Men kind of psychic, you know? But even she couldn't read people she loved. And if she had an emotional investment, then her feelings were not as accurate. The best psychic in the world is only right 70% of the time, which is an amazing percentage.
Yeah.
But it certainly isn't something you should change your entire life because a psychic told you something.
Yeah.
Especially if they're telling you it's a demon. Never believe that crap. So the nurses, being nursing students and young, they had immediate compassion for this child. And they bought it a bracelet, and they would take it to bed more with them, and they would talk to it, and they were putting all of their energy into that doll.
So they started to treat the doll as a child.
Yes, exactly. But
Because of the psychic.
Yes, exactly. And then things started to change because they would come home at night and they'd leave Annabelle on the bed, and then Annabelle would be standing at the door waiting for them. Now, it's a rag doll. It doesn't stand, but it would be standing right at the door. Or, it would be in a different part of the house, or it would be moving its arms differently. And they started to get creeped out. They started finding parchment paper, which is an old form of paper that they didn't own, with messages in crayon. And they didn't own crayons either, saying things like, "Wanna play? Miss me?" And they really started to get afraid. So one Sunday afternoon, one of the nurse's boyfriends was sleeping on the couch. And he woke up quickly and he said, "I just had a dream that Annabelle was on top of me, choking me to death." And he walked over to Annabelle, picked it up, threw it across the room and said, "You're just a stupid rag doll. You couldn't hurt anyone." As soon as he said that, these claw marks appeared across his chest and blood soaked through his shirt. They immediately called the Archdiocese of Hartford, Connecticut, the Catholic Church. And the church called my grandparents to check it out. My grandfather knew he believed it could not be a child. There was no way that God would allow a child to be trapped in the spirit of in the body of a doll. I've actually got cases where children have chosen to inhabit dolls.
Okay.
So I know that's not accurate any longer. But my grandmother picked up on this negative energy, and the way she interpreted it was, "This is a demon." I don't agree. It's not a demon, in my opinion. It's something known as an egregore, or a thought form, a tulpa. These are terms which talk about how we can manifest a spirit, an entity, through our own beliefs. If you think about my story and what I said, it started out innocently.
Yeah.
But as soon as the nurses became afraid, then the energy turned negative.
Starting to shape.
Yeah, they shaped it. In my travels around the world, I've found that the paranormal is shaped by our cultural and spiritual beliefs. So you're not going to get a Christian demon in a Muslim family, ever. It will be different. It'll be jinn. And it's not because elementals are different in different parts of the world, not at all. It's because our cultural differences are different. And we shape the energy. We have amazing power.
Yeah.
And if we can let go of our fear, imagine what we could do with that power. There are people known as light workers around the world who understand that and use that energy to do good works. Okay. And it's a beautiful way of helping others. Reiki is a similar system where they manipulate energy. And it's actually used in hospitals in the United States now.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, I was very surprised to find that out. Yeah, okay. It's very cool. But anyway, back to Annabelle. Yeah. So regardless of whether you believe it's a demon or an egregore, it doesn't really matter. It is something very, very negative and very dangerous. There was about 1974, a friend of mine, Father Bill Charbonneau, a young priest, full of energy. He was just the sweetest man. He had a brand new car and he came to visit my grandparents to show it off.
Okay.
And this was before Annabelle was in the box. My grandparents, for the first 6 or 7 years, didn't really know how to contain those energies. And after he showed the car to my grandparents, he said, "Ed, I hear you've got this doll that attacks people." And my grandfather said, "Yes, Father, it's downstairs. Would you like to see it?" So they went downstairs, and Annabelle's sitting in a rocking chair. And Father Bill walks right up to Annabelle, picks it up, just like that young man I talked about, throws it across the room, and says, "God is stronger than the devil." And my grandfather said, "Yes, Father, God is stronger than the devil, but no man is."
Okay.
On his way home in his brand new car that night, he was on the highway, and this white light came out of the sky directly at his car. And just before he veered off the road and into a ditch, he saw Annabelle in the halo of the light. The car was ripped in half and absolutely destroyed, and Father Bill had his leg broken. He was lucky to be alive.
Okay.
You know?
So he survived.
Yeah. Another time, my grandparents were in the state of Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, there are a lot of towns named after biblical places. Bethlehem and Lord's Valley and Paradise and all sorts of places. And my grandfather made a joke. This was, again, around 1976 or 77, probably 77. And he said, not even the Amityville Horror or Annabelle could hurt us here. As soon as he said that, something slammed into the back of the car. No, they were on an empty highway. There was a truck about a kilometer behind them. And the car spun around and went into a ditch. And the truck stopped when it caught up to them. And he said, it looked like something hit you. They were lucky. You know, my grandfather said, yeah, I've learned not to joke about Annabelle.
Okay, so before moving to another topic, I know that Ed passed on 2006 and
Yeah.
Lorraine passed on 2019. So after that, or before that, did they have any kind of clause to prevent for the future generations for not demolishing the house or selling the objects or selling the house? It is something.
Not really. It was all given to my mother and my stepfather. They've talked about selling the house, which I don't agree with. I would like to take over the house and be responsible for it. But that's their choice. The museum may or may not ever move. If it does, you know, my family are in their 70s, and I don't expect them to be moving that museum and opening it as a public venue. It never was a public venue. It was always by special invitation. It's a dangerous bunch of objects, and I don't see that happening until I assume I'm going to be the one responsible for the museum when they pass.
Okay.
And that means that it'll be turned over to the Warren Legacy Foundation to continue to take care of it after I'm gone.
Yeah.
And that'll be different. We're going to have an institution where it's a place where everything is behind glass, contained, nobody can touch it. Right now, if you're in that room, you can touch just about anything in there. It's kind of crazy. You know, we don't do this for money. My grandparents never charged anybody to help. I've never charged anybody to help. You know, so we don't have the funds right now to do that kind of thing. And to be quite honest, the museum isn't my focus. I care about helping people.
Yeah, it's more
you know.
important.
Yeah, it's I don't want to devote the next 10 years or 20 years of my life to watching over a bunch of dusty, evil objects. You know, that doesn't interest me.
Okay. So moving to another topic, which is about the movies. So what is for you the movie that recreate the events as real as they were?
The Conjuring 1 was best of all of them.
Okay.
But even that, they show my grandfather doing an exorcism. My grandfather did not believe he could do an exorcism. He was a Catholic.
Okay.
And for him, even though he would work with Buddhist monks and anybody else, because all religions have exorcism rites, he didn't think he was holy enough to do that. And I agree with him. He certainly was not a holy man. You know, he was not a deeply spiritual man. He was a very earthly man. My grandmother was deeply spiritual, and when she said prayers for someone, they really had an impact. But the others, not so good. Conjuring 2, for instance. Amityville was a real case. Enfield, England was a real case. But there was no Valak. There's no nun monster.
No,
that was created by James Wan.
Yeah, it was
you know. And the third one was actually caused by a Ouija board. It wasn't caused by some secret satanic witch in the basement of some house. That wasn't real at all.
Yeah.
Although I will say my favorite moment in all of the movies was in The Conjuring 3.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
It's the very last scene. My grandmother always wanted this gazebo, an outside pavilion at the house.
Yeah.
And my grandfather had it built, and he surprised her with it. It's still there today.
Oh,
and it made me cry.
Real.
Yeah,
Oh,
it made me cry. That was real. As a matter of fact, in Conjuring 3, at the very beginning, my grandfather has a heart attack during an exorcism.
Yeah.
That actually did happen, but it didn't happen in that exorcism. It happened in an exorcism that I was at, which was the Maurice Theriault case, which is Frenchie from The Nun.
Yeah. I know that case.
The Nun, that movie is absolutely fake.
Yeah.
There's nothing true about it except for one thing, the credits. In the credits, they show the actual exorcism of Maurice Theriault.
Okay.
And just before that took place, and I'll never forget this, my grandfather starts complaining that he doesn't feel good, his stomach's wrong. And my grandmother says, well, Ed, have a banana, you're probably low on potassium.
Okay.
See, even the best psychic isn't always right. But the next morning, he was in the hospital having had a massive coronary.
Okay. Okay. We had watched some YouTubers that have taken their spirit boxes to your grandparents' grave and have that an interview.
Yeah.
And for us, that we are paranormal investigators as well, so we know that there's barely impossible to do such thing. So we spent hours and hours trying to look some evidence, and they are having an actual conversation. It's something that it bothers you.
Completely. But I've learned that when I tried to tell people that this isn't true, their fans get so upset with me and think that I'm lying, and it doesn't help. I wish it did. There's one guy out there, he's a complete fraud, and it's been proven over and over and over again that this guy is Steve something, I don't even remember, but he did this with my mother or my grandmother, and then with my grandfather as well. As soon as they died, he takes clips of audio, and then he'll either run it backward so you still hear their voices.
Of actual conversations.
Yes, of taped conversations. He does this with lots of celebrities. And then he sells his spirit boxes for $2,000, $4,000.
What?
You know, he's a complete fraud. They all are. I remember watching an interview or a video on YouTube of a Mexican medium who said that she had visions of me at my grandparents' house, and that the museum had exploded, and that I was under attack by Annabelle. And I'm like, I'm in Brazil, for God's sake. What are you talking about? You know, this is ridiculous. And she's very popular. She's got millions of followers, and people will believe what they want to believe, and it's a shame.
So, well, so you're here in Peru, you're staying in Peru. So you have been in many cities here in Peru.
Yeah.
And what is the most memorable anecdote that you have here?
I have really loved being here. I really have.
Okay. That's awesome.
I got to investigate, I got to explore a number of places in southern Peru. I loved Puno. I loved Lake Titicaca, and I got to stay with a family on one of the islands that, a completely different kind of life. And I stayed with them for a night, and it was a wonderful experience. In Cusco, I spent 6 weeks there and fell in love, literally fell in love, as a matter of fact.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll be back actually in November, and I'll be settling down. So, yeah, I'm very happy about that. I guess if you're going to talk about favorite anecdotes, losing my heart to somebody special at my age was a pretty fantastic experience.
That's awesome, Chris. Yeah. Here in Peru, we do have some witchcrafting cases. It's very common, but in the U.S. we don't see that. We see more violent cases. So, what do you think is the reason for this?
You know, I've been here in South America now for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's something I've had to really examine. You're right. It's very interesting to me. I don't like people calling it witchcraft.
Okay.
Black magic is a better term.
Yeah.
Because in reality, I believe that witchcraft is probably the first religion in the world. We have evidence that it goes back 35,000 years. And it can be used for good or evil, like any religion in the world. It's your intention that matters. I believe that this magic, and I hate the whole idea of magic. For me, it's quantum physics.
Okay.
It's directed energy through intention and ritual to focus the energy. But I believe that the reason it is so prevalent here is because of people's beliefs and because they use those rituals and their faith to focus their intentions into a desired outcome, whether for good or evil.
Yeah.
In the United States, we don't have that tradition, and we don't have it in any of the Western world anymore. Not really, not as strong. So the energy isn't directed, and it gets out of control.
And it doesn't have any filter.
Exactly. Because the energy is directed here, you get very focused consequences.
Okay.
And because it isn't directed, you get poltergeist phenomena and other over-the-top phenomena in the Western world.
Okay.
That's a theory.
Yeah, I know.
And it's important that people understand I'm not an expert. No one is. If somebody's telling you they're an expert, they're either fooling themselves or they're lying to you. You know, we are just at the beginning of understanding this. I don't think we're going to unlock the idea of magic or even the paranormal in general, truly understand it, until we have the unified field theory in physics, which is where we take quantum physics and Newtonian physics. Right now, there's a giant space between those two theories, and we don't understand it. When we have the unified field theory, I believe that will start to unlock these interactions, like spooky action at a distance. It's an amazing phenomena, and I have seen it on the physical plane as well as the atomic plane. Okay. But science, because we cannot replicate the phenomena that we witness, science doesn't take us seriously yet. We don't have the tools necessary to replicate these things. So right now, my focus is only on helping others.
Okay, so according to that, I know you're here because of work.
Yeah.
And following with that, what are the future plans for the Warren Legacy Foundation?
Well, we're doing an awful lot, actually. We're expanding our mission of education around the world and, of course, helping people. As I mentioned, I'll be working on a case tomorrow here in Lima.
Yeah,
but I've got dedicated people all over the world who are out there offering their services for free and doing everything they can to help the families in need. If anybody needs help, please contact us at www.warrenlegacyfoundation.com or warrenfiles.com. Both work. There's a Google form on there in both English and in Spanish. Fill it out and we'll get started on helping you as quickly as we possibly can. You can also go to the Warren Files on YouTube. We have over 90 videos on there with experts from around the world who share their expertise, and we do it without the melodrama. We give you real information. Now, you're not going to learn to be a paranormal investigator by going to these places. That would be like watching a medical drama on television and thinking you should go out and practice surgery. We're working on classes that we're going to be teaching online. As a matter of fact, I teach a class online for Truckee College in Nevada. That'll be coming up next month. It's only a 4-hour course, but it's really intensive. We get deeply into my grandparents' work and the real theories behind the paranormal so that you can start to understand what's out there. don't believe the crap you see on YouTube from all of these people or the Instagram or TikTok videos. Most of that stuff's faked. And my other problem with it is many teams will go in, stir up problems, and then they'll leave the family after they've got their evidence. And they've terrorized the family, made things far worse, and the family then has to come find us. If you need us, we're here for you.
Thank you. So this interview is now drawing to a close. So I want to ask you something very special. So at the end of last year, one of our oldest member, Javier, passed away. So it was very shocking to understand he will no longer be with us anymore. And about a month ago, Luis, one of our members, lost his grandmother. So maybe people are now watching us and is passing through a grief. So what would Chris McKinnell tell someone that is passing through this loss of a family member or a friend, especially during this pandemic?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would like to talk to you about that. The first thing you need to understand, people often talk about their faith and losing faith when they lose a loved one. Well, if you lose your faith because somebody dies, then it wasn't faith. Faith, it was just a happy fantasy you told yourself to keep you going. Everybody is going to die. Without death, life has no meaning. It has no immediacy. Can you imagine living forever? You could walk away from someone for 1 billion years, and you know they're going to be okay. You know they're going to be there. You could ignore anybody on the street because they're fine. They're not going to die. Death teaches us compassion. It teaches us to love now, because without death, then we don't have a reason to care. Why should we? We can do whatever we want. We don't have to work. We don't have to eat. We don't have to do anything. You want to swim to the bottom of the ocean? Go ahead. But you would lose any connection with anybody else. As I've said many times, when you die, it's just your body. It's not you. It's just the vehicle for your soul. You are an eternal being, and you're living a human experience so that you can get closer to God. I was talking to you earlier about the idea of karma and what that really is.
Yeah.
You know, everybody thinks you do good, you get good, you do bad, you get bad. But anybody who's really looked at life will tell you that's not true. You know, the truth is, karma is about the connections you make in life. It's about the things you can't let go of. And we're here to learn to love unconditionally. We're here to learn compassion and empathy for everyone. If we just followed that one rule of every religion, you know, love others as you wish to be treated yourself, imagine how much better the world would be and how much more spiritual growth we would have. You know? So, yes, death can be hard for us. But that's for us. It's our grief. It's our selfishness at losing that person. For them, it's a coming home party. You know? It's like, oh, my pain is gone. I'm happy. I'm with people who love me. And the truth is, they can come back anytime they want to watch you and check on you and make sure you're okay. Most of us are not sensitive enough to be able to feel them, but they're there. And you know, they're going to be there for holidays. They're going to be there for birthdays and weddings and funerals and births, because we remember them then. And there's something called the law of attraction, law of recognition, where when you are thinking about them, you're calling to them. So they're never really gone. You don't really lose them. You're just missing them and their presence. But again, that's a lesson for you for the next person you love. Don't let them go without telling them you love them. Spend that time with them now. Don't wait until they're gone to miss them.
It was quite beautiful. Thank you, Chris, for that. And it was a very interesting interview. So I appreciate your time for doing this interview.
Thank you very much.
And I wish you the best of you on your journey. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. God bless you. And God bless you all.